who's up first and who's on first, who's on second.
The mayor's going to do his thing first,
Yeah.
and then all a public comment before everything else.
Okay, that's what I need to capture.
Joel dialed in, but his line was muted.
It is. Everything's muted right now.
Tell him yes. I'll mute it. Tell him yep. Start.
No comment. You got a haircut.
What's that?
I haven't seen you since Friday.
Probably, yeah.
So, it's a whole different world then.
All right. Ken Brown, Sandy Volcano. Yeah.
Well, not really, but
Hey there. Ken Brown, Sandy Volcano, Joel Shearer, James Ettinger, Roger.
Tracy, I'm gonna need you to sit somewhere other than, if Lewis is sitting there, you gotta be 6 feet away. Just so you're 6 feet.
Well, I don't have to sit here for
You could-
for your.
yeah, I just wanted to get the best shot.
Then just make sure you're 6 feet away because you're gonna it's gonna be, I don't want somebody calling in saying you're not practicing what you're preaching.
I would sit back there.
Mayor, you've got Ken Brown, Sandy, Joel,
I'm trying to solve
James,
video.
Jim Ettinger,
Is
Roger,
this not,
I'll sit up front.
and
Peter?
Peter Milan.
Okay, so we have all 7.
Dave?
Dave O'Connell?
Everybody's muted.
Every-
Dave O'Connell's not on yet.
Dave's not on yet? Oh, you're sitting up here? That's a good idea.
So when you're ready,
You a bigger shot. You wanna be a bigger shot.
that's Sandy's seat? Or, no, that's,
Sandy's.
Yeah, I'd rather sit up there, but.
no, Sandy's the next.
That's Peter's.
That's Peter.
Oh, it's Peter's now, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's appropriate, right?
He's your
person on-
chairperson.
Yeah.
all right, I am going to unmute this. real
We have 2
quick.
minutes.
Yeah, no, we have started.
The camera started, yeah. I'm going to unmute this, and then, Dave O'Connell's on.
Oh,
Now,
good.
I'm going to mute the participants and the
Any,
council.
anyone yet?
Yeah, 3. And
I don't have
the
one.
council-
I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't have one either.
I'll make it for you.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't have, I didn't print it out. Because my laptop's in the room with a dead battery. I've been using
The
it too much
conference
at
has
home.
been unmuted.
Been using it too often at home.
Imagine I'm here now.
You're here.
Okay, so now I'll self-mute
Okay.
if I want to. Not making any noise.
We have about 8 people.
They're all on, yeah. 5:59.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
This is David. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
We're going to start in about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna, okay.
We're going to call this meeting of the City Council to order. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the pledge of the flag. Heavenly Father, healer of all, stay by our side in this time of uncertainty and sorrow. Be with those who have died from the virus. May they be rest in peace and eternal peace forever. Be with the families of those who are sick or who have died. As they worry and grieve, defend them from illness and despair. May they know your peace. Be with our doctors, nurses, researchers, and all medical professionals who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. Be with the leaders of all of our nations in the world. Give them the foresight to act with charity and true concern for the well-being of the people they serve. Give us, our local officials, the wisdom to invest in long-term solutions that will help our residents and local businesses as they face the challenges ahead and we work to restore our economy to pre-coronavirus levels. While we are at home or abroad, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness or only a few, stay with us as we endure and mourn, persist and prepare. In place of our anxiety, give us your peace. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of
United States
America
of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One nation.
under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
with
Liberty and
liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk. Excuse me. Well, let's take roll call first. Then I got to make an announcement about the recording.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Volcano?
Here,
Mayor Panto?
Here. Before I begin with my remarks, and we begin this meeting, let me go over the protocols for participating in this meeting. First, we are live streaming, but there is a delay, so when speaking, don't listen to the live stream and have the volume on your live stream turned down when you are participating in the meeting. That's for everyone other than the council members. Secondly, if you want to make a comment, a member of the public, about an agenda item or any matter of the City of Easton, you must first email your name, address, and phone number that you're going to be using to call in. The email address to call in is eastonmeetingroom@easton-pa.gov. Again, we want you to send an email to eastonmeetingroom@easton-pa.gov, and you give us your name, address, and phone number, and then our IT director will call on you and unmute you so that you can participate in the meeting when ready. All of our members of council are on the line. Will be participating in this meeting remotely. Members of council, we want you to try to unmute at all times, so please either place your phone on mute, and if you don't have a mute, be sure that your background noise is limited. This is our first attempt at this, so we're asking everyone to be patient. In case there are concerns to the city's broadcast message, please go to the Office of Open Records and review the permitted methods during these challenging times, which what we're doing this evening does take place. Roll call. We did that.
We did that.
right.
Approval agenda.
Approval of the agenda.
So move.
second,
Moved in second. Discussion. I'd like to pull off introduction of the bill dealing with towing, bill number 5, number 2 under new business. Go ahead, Dr. Lewis.
Mayor, I just want to add, I want to read into the minutes, since you gave the disclaimer, if you will. I do want to note, so we're consistent with some of the changes in the open records guidelines, that for this meeting, we did advertise on various social media outlets, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Certainly, we published the changes, as you had just read, on our website. Also, physically on the front doors at City Hall, we also put the notices as well. These changes were as of from last Friday through as early as today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Campos. So I'm asking that bill number 5 come off. Although this is really important and we have to make some changes, I know that Joel brought up some concerns that Councilmember Milan has, and I have the same concerns, but my biggest concern about towing, I don't want to go into it, but we have predatory towers who are charging upwards of $350 cash, and I have a real problem with that. Right now, I don't have that problem, unfortunately, because downtown businesses are shut down where these people are parking. But some of them are parking into the neighborhood parking lots as well. So we need to address this issue, and I know that Peter tried to address this before, and we're going to try to get this resolved once and for all. So I've asked both the solicitor and the assistant solicitor to review it. Any other changes to the
Mayor.
agenda? Go ahead.
Mayor, can I interject? It's Peter. Can I
Sure,
interject
Peter.
for a second? Would you be okay with pulling the resolution about the state police for the time being?
Sure, no problem.
I think just given the current situation with the Commonwealth and the state of emergency, I'm not sure if this is really an appropriate resolution given, where the government's going for the next couple weeks. So if it's okay with you, I'd prefer we just pull this for now.
Sure, number 5 under new business, Madam Clerk.
So we're
you,
removing
Mayor.
bill number 5, the towing ordinance, and we're removing the resolution opposing the taxation for Governor Wolf's budget thing.
Correct.
Yes, please.
Anyone else? Seeing
Thank you,
none,
Mayor.
I'll vote on those 2 amendments, which is to delete number 2 and number 5 under new business. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
All right, hang on 1 second. Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Now approval of the agenda as amended, Madam Clerk. We need a motion in a second, I'm sorry.
Need a motion first.
Motion on the actual amended agenda.
Move.
To accept the amended agenda.
Moved by Mrs. Volcano, second by Mr. O'Connell. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is action on the minutes of March 11th.
Move to accept the minutes.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Brown and Mr. O'Connell.
Is that Roger, I thought?
Yeah, Roger.
Sorry.
Action on the minutes is moved and seconded. Any discussion, additions, deletions, or corrections? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
Okay, before we get to our opportunity for public comment, I'd like to make a few comments about the coronavirus, COVID-19 that we're facing today. My fellow Eastonians, we've weathered some serious challenges in our 268-year history. Easton is a story weaved together by resilient spirit of our residents, and we will rise together again as neighbors, as one city, one community. We played an important role all the way back to our nation's independence, as we showed our courage with the public reading of the Declaration of Independence. We've made sacrifices during the wars, from the early French and Indian War all the way up to the World Wars and most recently our conflicts. We've labored and sacrificed, some with their own lives, to build the great canals and railroads. We were a birthplace for the Industrial Revolution, and we sustained and survived many different diseases and viruses before. Our ancestors survived the Great Depression, and we endured and survived the 2008 recession. We weathered the flight to the suburbs and watched as our population dropped, our loss of our business district, a rise in violence and crime, to just what was 2 weeks ago, a city that was alive and well, with an economy that was growing beyond all expectations. This was an economy that wasn't based on large corporations. This is an economy based on small businesses. We build an economy on hardworking people looking for a better life for their family and friends and employees. An economy built on small businesses attracting many, many, many visitors and customers from our outside to the city and to city businesses. This is a make or break moment, as COVID-19 is one of the greatest public health threats of our time. Now is the time for bold, urgent, and transparent leadership, not false claims and political rhetoric. But I think it's fair to say that this has been a different but still a very challenging time for all of us. I want to assure all of our residents and businesses that your city is fully committed to helping each other through this period of uncertainty, and I'm tirelessly committed to making sure that Easton comes out of this better, stronger, with more community spirit than ever. We are rovers, and we will remain rover strong. Let me also say that I'm deeply appreciative of all city employees who have been steadfast in their service to the city. Their flexibility and resiliency as witnessed during these trying times has been remarkable, and I appreciate their efforts and their encouragement. Our employees are still working, so if you see one of them, say thank you. I'm also very appreciative of our first responders, particularly our police officers and firefighters, who are braving this virus and moving into the city's need, whether it's the residents or a business. I'm also appreciative of my fellow mayors. I've spoken to several mayors, from Todd Tersigny in Phillipsburg to Deneen Starachi in Lancaster. Our senior staff members have been in communication as local governments are on the front line of this pandemic. We are also in communication with Northampton County Government and County Emergency Management Department. I've talked to Judy Walker, chairperson of the Project Hope, which sponsors a great event at the holiday time, giving a meal and clothing and groceries to our less fortunate. Her group was looking to sponsor a community picnic on May 30th, but now looks to do some version of a curbside pickup event. But also, I was speaking to her today about sponsoring free pizza days in downtown for our less fortunate population. They are truly a wonderful group of volunteers who are helping the less fortunate in our community. Estonians never cease to amaze me with their compassion and consideration of others. I'm speaking to a lot of residents, and a repeated concern that I'm hearing is the number of New York residents that are fleeing that city and coming to visit and stay with friends and families in Easton. This is a grave concern to me as well. I'm asking that those host families, those Estonian families, make sure that their visitors from New York City are self-quarantined for at least 14 days. I can't stress this enough because, as we all know, more than 50% of the coronavirus cases, come from New York City. There's a saying that when the enemy is at the gates, it's not a time to panic. Rather, it's a time to review our strategy, modify and update it as necessary, and work together to get through this challenge. My assurance to you, my fellow Estonians, is that we will get through this challenge. 2 points. Our biggest problem is that our enemy is invisible. We can't see it. Easton is used to floods, hurricanes, natural disasters, where you can see the effects or the impact of the disaster. This is a silent, invisible virus that is affecting us. So we need to look at it differently. My assurance to you, though, is that we will get through it. It's not going to be seriously taken by everyone, but I'm asking you tonight to take this seriously. The numbers are increasing every day. On my staff, we watch it every day. We listen to other governors from across this country, to our president, to the coronavirus task force, and it's getting serious, more serious every day. It's also a challenge because our efforts are not local, they're statewide, and we must rely on our state government and our healthcare providers to address this enemy. If it was down trees from the Hurricane Sandy, we just sent out our public works department, they would clean everything up for us. It took a while, it took 5 days to get our electricity back on and all the trees cleaned up, but we were in charge. In this case, we do take some of our leadership from our state, so we're asking for state help, and you will hear about some of that tonight. Please also don't have any front porch gatherings, outdoor or indoor play dates for your children. Be smart. Save a life. Our focus up to this point has been to avoid spreading the virus, especially to our most vulnerable senior citizens or those with underlying health care problems. You may have heard it as referred to it as flattening the curve. People should continue social distancing, avoiding large crowds. Wash your hands thoroughly and with hot water. Avoid touching your faces, and please cover your mouth and with your elbows when needing to cough or sneeze. And please listen to our governor and stay at home. I ask for your patience. In these uncertain times when things are changing, frustration is likely to happen. And we want to encourage people to be patient, be kind, be considerate, and look out for your neighbor, especially our senior citizens. If they don't answer the door, leave a note on their door that you were there and you were concerned about them. Maybe they just don't want to open the door in this time of crisis. During this time of unprecedented uncertainty, residents are going to turn to our public officials like us on City Council and expect us to take swift and decisive action grounded in the data, the scientific data, to ensure the well-being of their personal health and financial security. Frankly, they should demand no less than us. Later in our meeting, I will ask my colleagues to ratify the actions of our administration has taken in addressing this challenge on the local level. I will outline them for the viewing public. On March 19th, I issued an emergency declaration and outlined several emergency actions this week in regards to the COVID-19 outbreak. Steps which would increase our purchasing authority related to COVID-19, ensure city employees are paid while they shelter in place or take care of their families, and allow the city to spend federal dollars allocated for the cost of COVID-19 pandemic. Let me state, all this time I have deeply been at this time today, as a result of this morning's early morning vote, I am deeply disappointed in our federal government for eliminating the portion of the stimulus plan that would have given direct funding to cities and local governments based on the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant formula. Most of the money will go to counties and states, and we will have to be begging to make sure that our small businesses and our residents get the assistance they need. On tonight's agenda will also be resolutions concerning and ratifying actions that we have already taken to deal with this task and this crisis, and ratify for our residents' well-being tonight. They are such things as suspension of all non-essential city services. We will be extending the filing of your earned income tax paperwork and payment to July 15th to match the state and school districts and county new date. We will also be extending for our small businesses the business privilege tax until August the 1st of 2020. 2020 City of Easton real estate taxes are also extended to August 1st without penalty. We are asking City Council to authorize the administration to borrow, if necessary, and only due to the coronavirus, short-term loans up to $300,000 by telephonic approval of the majority of City Council. To borrow from city reservoirs and city funds that are available for specific expenses, like our open space and recreation fund that developers pay for new projects that can only be used for open space and recreation, or the insurance casualty fund, or the city's capital purchasing fund, or our general fund balance. We've been really tight with our budgets over the last 12 years. We've built up a reserve, and it's for a rainy day. My fellow residents, the rainy day has arrived. And fortunately, unlike many other cities, we are in a better place to weather this storm financially. Closing of all City Hall and other public buildings to the public, but for our parking facilities. To compensate for the significant revenue shortfall due to COVID-19, we will ask a moratorium be placed on all purchases and projects of the city, with the exceptions of purchases and costs associated with this virus pandemic. All these will have to be approved by our city administrator. All city employees are essential to the service of our residents. Therefore, all cities are required to report to work unless they are sick or take vacation. All city policies regarding sick leave will be enforced according to the new federal laws concerning family leave standards. We are trying our best to keep employees working, but if it becomes necessary for furloughs, layoffs, or to accommodate people working from home, the administration will meet with union leaders who have been extremely cooperative to discuss the ideas that are mutually beneficial to our employees as well as to our residents. Each city director has developed and will continue to develop COVID-19 protocols to be followed by their employees, such as social distancing, wiping down police and fire apparatus with sanitizer when the new shift comes on. The Pennsylvania Sunshine Law allows for two-way technology, as we're doing tonight, and we're allowing the public to participate in city council meetings. All city-sponsored sports events, practices, and special events or festivals at city facilities or in right-of-way streets are canceled through April 30th. This will be recessed at that time to determine any extensions to that declaration. As per the governor, the declaration will not impact our outdoor winter farmers market, but arrangements have been made to require curbside service and a suggested social distancing, which I did witness this past Saturday. However, I did hear from GEDP just recently, within the last hour, that they will be canceling the outdoor winter market this Saturday, but it's because of the wind and cold weather that's expected and the rain. To waive the enforcement, we're asking City Council to waive enforcement of all traffic violations by our parking enforcement officers or police officers and direct that they only give tickets that present a safety hazard, such as parking in an intersection or blocking a private driveway, etc. The waiver will extend the month of April and include expired registrations and inspections. We will also be curtailing the booting of vehicles until April 30th for all massive unpaid parking fines. We will suspend citations for late fees for penalties effective as of March 16th until April 30th to be reviewed and possibly extended for all utility bills. Street cleaning will not start April 1st. We will delay that till June 1st because everybody's home from work. Effective Monday, March 30th, this coming Monday, our trash hauler has notified us that the collection of bulk items at curbside will cease. So we're asking you, please don't put out your bulk items next week. Daily rates in both the city parking garages will be waived until and through April 30th. Orders that City Hall and public buildings will remain closed will go through April 30th as well. Public meetings of all authorities, boards, and commissions will be canceled at this time unless they have important deadlines that must be met for specific businesses that can't wait. If a meeting must be held, meetings will be remote like this city council meeting during the entire duration of the pandemic, and we will follow Pennsylvania Sunshine Law provisions. It also authorizes the mayor to cancel city council meetings unless, again, important meeting items need to be discussed and approved as we're doing this evening. Because city council tonight will have to approve my declaration of an emergency and the things that we want to do here, because I only have up to 7 days to do that. This order cancels all council district meetings in the neighborhoods. We just can't provide the technology that the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law requires, nor would we want to. So all city council meetings that are held, it'll probably be at least once a month, will be held in this chambers, and it'll be done with the practice like we're doing this evening, when all of the other city council members can call from home. We also authorizes the administration to take any action not listed above that deals with the COVID-19 virus. We do not take these steps lightly, ladies and gentlemen. As individuals who serve your public, we will do everything in our power to provide essential services for the public good of our city residents. We regret having to close or limit services normally provided. We suggest, for example, we're not closing our parks. We want you to get out and enjoy them, maintain your social distance. But if you're going to put your children on the playground equipment, which we haven't decided yet whether we're going to actually close or not, please bring some sanitizing wipes and wipe it down before you put your child on it. The last thing we want to do is spread this coronavirus. We want to flatten the curve. Our emergency management team will continue to monitor this public health emergency closely and is prepared to respond to any contingencies that arrive. At my direction, our Department of Community and Economic Development and our Redevelopment Authority are already working to develop and provide small business assistance. The effort is reduced significantly as of the early morning's federal government report, when we thought we were going to get a direct allocation of community development block grant funds in addition to what we would normally get. And I had talked to Mr. Kingsley about using that to get small business loans for our small businesses and then buying down the interest with that CDBG funds. So we would basically be giving our loans at zero interest. Well, the good news is thankfully Governor Wolf has stepped in, and I want to thank him. And through our Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation, small businesses with less than 100 employees will be allowed to take loans from that $61 million that he has appropriated so far, which doesn't include federal dollars, and they will get no interest loans, which won't start to be paid back for at least 1 year. That's great news for any small business who's in our city who's striving to make our economy stronger. Last, I'd like to mention that I am staying on top of the developments of Easton Hospital. Whatever we do and whatever I can do, I will do to keep that hospital open and serving our public. I can do it by making calls to our senators and our congresswomen and our local state officials who are in, as you all know and read in the paper, St. Luke's and Stewart Healthcare have asked for a $40 million grant to stay open during this pandemic and to help St. Luke's purchase the hospital. I'm excited that St. Luke wants to purchase the hospital and understand their concerns about the finances, where the Easton Hospital is losing several $1 million a month. But I'm also excited because St. Luke's is a quality health care provider, and they will be a great asset to our city and our area, and I offer them whatever assistance they may need. Tonight I ask our residents to comply with Governor Wolf's stay-at-home order. Follow the recommendations for social distancing to slow the virus and flatten the curve. Just as importantly, after we meet this challenge, I'm asking that you all come back to Easton, support Easton, and support our businesses that are so important to our economic well-being. We all know the city of Easton 2 weeks ago is not the city of Easton today. As I look out my windows and see no one walking on our streets, no one parking on the streets, no one visiting our businesses, our retail stores, our museums, or anything. It's not nice. It's like the Easton I remember 20 years ago, and we certainly don't want to go back to that. But with your help, we will restore a thriving economy that we had just a few weeks ago. In short term, however, let's all remain Rover strong, meet this challenge, and come together for be better and stronger than ever. Thank you. Mr. Campos, you want to give an update on city operations before we open up to the public?
Yes, Mayor. I'll be brief in my comments. Since the governor's declaration identifying the spread of the COVID-19 as a threat in our community, the administration has taken various actions to ensure that employees are safe and public services continue as best as possible. To this extent, while City Hall is closed to the public, staff continues to be available to assist the general public with all facets of government, including but not limited to administrative and emergency services. Staffing levels will remain at high levels. There will be delays in certain areas, and we ask for your patience as we work through this challenging environment. I'm going to list actions that we have taken to ensure continuity of services. First, staffing levels within City Hall have been, and throughout the city, have been divided into 2 different shifts. This is not only to segregate our staffing in case an infection does occur with any member, and we have to then displace that shift or that portion of the shift, but this also allows us to continue services to the community at large. We are decreasing staff-to-staff interaction and promoting conference technology to conduct meetings. Internally, our HR staff has issued several protocols, both that have been published internally for operations and also those that we have adopted that are through federal legislation. These include, but are not limited to, infectious disease policies, COVID-19 exposure guidelines, recent FMLA changes. We've provided training to supervisors on updates on HIPAA, ADA, and including FMLA. We've instructed our workforce on how to stop the spread of germs using common sense and just current methods. We've instituted work from home protocols and including workers' compensation protocols. All of these items, Mayor and City Council, are constantly changing, but our team internally is ensuring that we're communicating as best as possible to our employee workforce in real time. We're limiting our employee exposure to the general public, except for following strict social distancing measures. All departments have implemented various levels of protocols, and information regarding impacted services can be found on the City of Easton's website. We have enacted our emergency preparedness plan protocols This includes establishing an emergency management coordinator, and that coordinator acts as the liaison between the county, state, and federal government. That coordinator, Mayor and City Council, as you know, is Deputy Chief Henry Hennings. To that extent, we've been mobilizing the internal team to prepare in the event that we have to enact an emergency operations center. And to that extent, we're looking at an org chart when the traditional roles of city government are compromised and we have to move into an EEOC. We are reviewing the COVID-19 economic impact on the city's budget. As you had mentioned, Mayor, in your speech, Finance has been conducting budgetary stress tests. On those stress tests right now, we're modeling out what a 5% reduction in revenue would look like. And at the same time, we're looking at those expenses that we can control. To that extent, I will announce, and I have briefed you already on these measures, as well as members of council, that we are immediately implementing reduction in spending. So this will include right now all vacant positions right now will be put on hold except for emergency services. I do want to announce that about, I believe 2 weeks ago now, about 2 Saturdays ago, the chief of police had asked myself and yourself, Mayor, on whether or not we should conduct the training for the 5 vacant positions in the police department. And this portion of the training was the agility testing portion. We instructed the chief that because emergency services is a priority and filling those vacancies is equal to that priority, we've instructed him to take the necessary measures to ensure that staff stays safe while the testing continues. So I do want to inform council that testing and the public that testing continued, and we did receive a good amount of applicants on that day, about 90 or so individuals. So that's a positive sign for us. But as I had mentioned,
And we divided them into 2 groups.
and we divided
That
them.
time was we could have up to 50. We had 45 each.
That's correct, Mayor. So, but to that extent, that's the only hiring that we're looking to fill at this point in time. All other positions, all other vacant positions that are open now or that we plan to fill throughout the year, we did that during the budgetary process. I've instructed the teams to put that on hold until further notice. We're also looking at large construction projects. One example is road reconstruction. Fortunately, council this year approved a budget that 50% of the road reconstruction expenses was in the operation fund. The other 50% was in liquid fuels. So we've put a hold, in working with the director of DPW, put a hold on about $170,000 worth of road reconstruction projects. That's a hold as we continue to monitor this economic impact on a week-to-week basis and a 30 to 60-day basis, if not 90-day basis. We are also going to continue to look at additional cuts where possible, and to that extent, we're working with department heads to model out what this potential impact could be, as I had mentioned earlier. With finance, we're conducting a sensitivity modeling where we'll look at anywhere from 5%, as I said, as a threshold, and up reduction in revenues. The administration has been and will continue to collaborate with the city's union leadership. I've been happy with the openness of the union. They've been available when we needed to make some actions, and in particular, I do want to commend the AFSCME union and their leadership for acting fast on some measures that we had to take last week in order to change the workforce schedules. We're going to continue to plan and mobilize the workforce to be fully operational from home in the case of more restricted COVID-19 enforcement measures come down by the state or the federal government. We're conducting daily management team meetings to discuss ever-changing dynamics of the impact on the city's workforce and public services. Weekly communication meetings with other cities is being conducted by myself and the finance director, and these other cities include Bethlehem, Reading, Lancaster, York, and Harrisburg to discuss best practices. And we're sharing experiences during this crisis. The mayor and myself held a Q&A sessions with the entire workforce. We did it twice this week, and we were able to have a one-on-one consultative dialogue with the workforce, which the workforce asked us questions. We also review these same measures with them. The city will continue to post on the website and send out a municipal newsletter with updates to city operations infected by the COVID-19 virus. At the moment, this is very fluid and is changing on a daily and weekly basis. Mayor, to that extent, I do want to notify yourself that at the most recent email blast, we sent it out to, I believe, 4,000 to 5,000 individuals that we have on our list. Those emails come from, for example, when residents are utilizing our utility billing online services. They have the ability to submit an email. We collected those emails and we're using that as a distribution list. I do want to tell you that it was a 66% open rate, so we're able to communicate in one way or another, just changes that are occurring. You had provided in your opening remarks a list of impacted services. They are too long here to mention, but we will be putting those services again on our website, and we'll be sending them out via the municipal newsletter, and we'll be keeping that updated as frequently as possible. And lastly, before I conclude here, I do want to mention, as you had stated in your remarks, that the economic development team is working with various local and state agencies to assist businesses in obtaining resources to assist with this economic impact. At the moment, officials at all levels are identifying how these resources will be deployed. And as updates are provided, the administration will communicate accordingly to council and the community. Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you not only for your leadership, but also for council's leadership on moving quickly on some of these measures, so the administration can ensure that we're maintaining our services. We're being mindful of not only our residents, but also our employees, who are right now our assets to keeping the business of city government up and running. We're very, very sensitive to our employees. Our employees are impacted similarly, just like everyone else. Their home lives are completely disrupted. We're doing the best that we can, as we can work with them. And to that extent, I do want to tell you that the employees understand that their presence here do contribute to the stability of our community and to making sure that we have a continued safe and effective operating government. Thank you, Mayor, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Campos, doing a great job. Staff is doing a great job, the employees. For those that do not receive, or you want to make sure you receive a email newsletter that we're starting, you want to send an email to communications@easton-pa.gov, and she will have your email address, and then is that?
There's also a newsletter sign up.
Right. It's also the homepage that has an e-newsletter sign up. So we're finding it more and more difficult to communicate with our residents. So this is one good way. And for those of you that know of someone, because obviously if you don't have Wi-Fi, you're not watching this broadcast. But if you know someone in your neighborhood that doesn't have Wi-Fi, right now both RCN and Service Electric that provide service to the city are offering up to 2 months of free internet. So I suggest that while your kids are home and they need to get access to their school work, etc., this is a good time to sign up for 2 months of free activity. If you don't want it after that, there's no obligation. But it's what they're doing. And I should mention that there's also other groups in our city that are doing well as well. City Council should know that county seats in the Silk Mill, as well as 8 Oaks, which is at the public market, are both making hand sanitizer, making it available. And Kaplan's Awnings, which is out in the West Ward now, and also Mercantile Home are making face masks so that they can use masks. If you know of anybody that's out of those needed PPE, personal protective equipment. You know, when I used to say PPE, no one knew what I meant, so now at least people know it's personal protective equipment. Unfortunately, it's not the way to learn the acronyms that are used. But I want to also just let City Council say anything they may want to say right now before we get to public comment. Mr. Caruso, do we have anyone that wants to speak?
Nobody's written in?
No one's written in yet? Okay. Again, if you want to make comments to the city on any agenda or any matter at all, it's Easton Meeting Room at easton-pa.gov. G-O-V. Okay? So, any member from council want to make any comments?
Mayor, this is David O'Connell. I just wanted to repeat Lewis's comments. I want to thank you very much for your leadership. I think under the circumstances, you and your staff are doing a tremendous job.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. I can tell you when I go home at night, I'm tired. This is really stressful,
I bet you are.
and it's like you wonder what you got done today. But you're dealing with controversy and stress all day long. And I can only tell you that the good news is that working in City Hall, the city employees inside and outside of City Hall have been very, very supportive and very flexible, and they make my job a lot easier. Anyone else? Okay. Any public comment yet? You know what? Even though it's not on the agenda, I'll ask at the end of the night. So let's go into consent agenda.
Under the consent agenda, we have 4 resolutions approving certificates of appropriateness, one for 64 North 2nd Street, one for 234 Bushkill Street, one for 200 Northampton Street, and one for 500 Washington Street.
I move the consent agenda.
Who was that?
Who was it?
David O'Connell, move the consent agenda.
Who seconded it?
I'll second it, Roger.
Roger Ruggles. Okay. So move to second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
And Mayor Panto?
Aye. There are no reports to be received by City Council. Let's go right into committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several things coming forward this evening. I have bill number 3, which is for the financial code. Also, I have coming forward a resolution for
You need to speak up, Mr. Brown.
the DTC Corporation and a resolution approving the agreement for the invoice pay. And that's for signature.
Okay. Anything else?
That will be my report.
Any questions for Mr. Councilman Brown? Is there a report from Mr. Lisinecki?
There is, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, there is a report from Mr. Zanetti under my report here.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, Councilman Brown and rest of council. I did send everyone an updated February results packet earlier today. I would like to again apologize for the timeliness of that. Unfortunately, given the circumstances of the last several weeks, our priorities have shifted a bit. But I can go over some of the highlights. But really, at this point, I think it seems, you know, the information seems a bit dated, given the updates that the mayor and Lewis have already provided as to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our results and on our revenues, and frankly the impact for the community overall. As of February, our revenue numbers were up combined across all the funds. As far as the general operating fund, the general fund, real estate revenues were up to over $2 million, close to $3 million. And that's really just a timing issue. In some years, we get payments coming in earlier than others. It's nice to see those dollars coming in earlier, given, again, the issues we're facing at this time. EIT is also up. On our push for business licenses and permits, those were also up year over year. And parking meter revenues were up, again, year over year through February. Fortunately, looking out on the streets now, we know that trend just will not continue. Expenses were down year over year, in most part because of accruals and encumbrances that were booked last year that weren't necessarily booked this year, so no real operational issues. I do want to note that police overtime is up year over year, but we do have 3 vacancies in there, so the net impact is actually positive. So we're saving money with not having yet filled those empty positions. In addition, fire OT is down significantly. It's down $70,000 year over year, We do also have five firefighters out due to injury. And if we take a look at the 3 firefighters we brought in at the end of last year, their combined year-to-date estimates of costs, or their salaries and benefits, are probably close to $30,000. So considering our overtime is down 70, it's still again a net positive. Lastly, just want to touch on the COVID-19 again. Really the concern that we have is on our revenues as a result of business, being down overall across the city, potentially employers or employees not earning over the next several weeks, months, however long this works. So it's something that we are going to continue to monitor on a daily basis and determine how we're going to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Lisinecki. Is there any comments or questions from City Council? Okay, moving on. Councilmember Volcano, Economic Development.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also echo Mr. O'Connell and Mr. Campos in thanking the mayor, city administrators, directors, police, fire, and all city staff for their cooperation through this crisis that we are experiencing. It's wonderful to see the cooperation with all the parties concerned. But I'd like to report that the Economic Vitality Committee of the Easton Main Street, of which I and Director Kinsley are members, normally meet monthly. However, we are now meeting weekly via telephone conferencing. We met this morning and discussed various issues concerning our businesses in the downtown. Director Kinsley advised about telling and to let everyone know, and the small businesses, that they can go on the city website, and we are trying to update it as best we can with links for the various information for the small businesses. It was also recommended to relay to any businesses to keep track of sales lost and any costs related to this COVID-19 pandemic. Also, they should be contacting their banks, landlords and credit card companies, or creditors for deferment and interest reductions. Let's see. Director Kinsley advised also that he and Jared Mass, who is the GEDP director, are seeking to find some lending streams for these businesses in the city. So if you have any other further questions, please direct them to Director Kingsley, and he will try to answer them as best he can for you. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Volcano. That was a great report. I do know that with this additional $61 million coming from the state, that LVEDC does not have enough employees to handle. They only have 2 people in the loan department. So having Mr. Kingsley here with his experience at LVEDC would be very helpful. And we'll make sure that he and Marak and the Redevelopment Authority people are up to date on how we can help our small businesses. I really did feel that we had a good plan going in, that we could use CDBG funds that were going to be allocated by the stimulus plan directly to local communities. But unfortunately, that didn't pass as Congress continues to think of us as lobbyists, I guess, rather than constituents. And I'm very disappointed because we spent a lot of time on the Hill 2 weeks ago when I was in Washington, and we talked about that we're not lobbyists. We represent the same people they represent. We need to have these dollars. You take a community like Easton, we have no really large employers, but we have a lot of good small employers who are teetering even before this COVID-19. Yep. And now I hope they can all come out of it, and we'll do whatever we can to help to make sure that happens. So thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Planning and codes, Councilmember O'Connell.
I have no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Public safety, Councilman Ruggles.
The only thing I would like to emphasize is both the police and fire departments. I want to just lift them up because they are dealing face to face with the public, and I think that they've been doing a tremendous job, and I want to thank them for all the work that they've done probably on a very, very stressful environment. But other than that, I have no report.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Ruggles. Well stated. Public Works, Councilman Ettinger.
I have no report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Milan, Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo my colleagues' feelings on the excellent job that the administration is doing with regards to communication and keeping the public informed. I do want to stress that public safety is being affected by this tremendously, but I do want to give the proper credence to EMS, too. They are going to be, if this thing does kind of exacerbate itself, they're going to be the ones who have to transport these patients from their domiciles to hospitals. So I do want to give them some proper credence in what they're going to be facing in the coming weeks. But I do want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank the administration. I also want to thank the unions for being flexible and helping us deal with this crisis. So I have no report. I'll defer to Mr. Campos if anything else he wants to add under my report. If not, we can just continue then.
Anything else on your report?
No, I have nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Milan. Attorney Shearer, you're on the line as well, and
Yeah.
so is Jeremy. You guys have anything? Solicitors?
Joel's here. And you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
We'd like to mute you, but we can't. We won't.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. In the effort to keep City Council up to date, there were numerous executive sessions held since the last council meeting. The first one on March 18, in which the mayor updated those who participated, was basically all of these have been informational, and there have been some discussions to update the council members on personnel matters, which are protected under the executive sessions. There were only 3 in attendance, so actually that wasn't under the Sunshine Act because we had less than half the people there. There was another executive session on March 23rd, and then there was another one on March 24th. Again, the topics.
Can you speak up a little louder, Joel?
The topics
Thank you.
included personnel matters and an overview of what the administration has been doing. And that's the extent of my report.
And I can continue to keep council updated as long as they're informational, right?
As long as there is no deliberation or we actually can't discuss the matters when you're just giving it informational. But so much of this overlaps into personnel issues, and that's permitted.
Thank you, Mr. Shear. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
Thank you. Report of the mayor. I just want to mention that the COVID-19 information coming down about what is essential, what is not essential, has been an ongoing dilemma. Business owners are calling me and saying, can they open, can't they open, why can this person be open, that person can't be open. The only thing we're doing on the local level is enforcing the governor's orders, and I don't agree that a store that happens to sell beverages and candy and snacks is considered a grocery store. And they could be open selling beer and tobacco, and yet people who are trying to make a living can't, and salons and all other kinds of gift shops can't be open. So we are dealing with that. I've been in touch with the governor's office on a number of occasions. Been in touch with the senator's office and the Congresswoman Wild about legislation coming out of the federal government. And very honestly, my role with the senior staff will be to try, once this money is divvied up to the state, will be to try to get as much of that money to our small businesses as we can. We will still continue to work on some type of local loan program to try to save these businesses, but interpreting and enforcing, and I will be very honest, I've given permission, like there's a bicycle shop in the city, calls me up on Saturday and says, bicycle shops can be open for maintenance and repairs, but not sales. However, if I call up and I order a bike online and I pick it up at the curb, can I do that? And I said, sounds like Amazon to me. Why would I let a small business not do that if Amazon could deliver it to my door? So I gave that person permission. So if you see something that's not copacetic with you, let me know, and I will have our people investigate it. But if they have come up with a good reason that they should or shouldn't be there, we will do that, because right now there's businesses that are open that I may not have given permission to, but certainly the state considers them a grocery store. So I think you're going to see a lot of retailers put in a 4-foot gondola section with food so they can say they're a grocery store. If I go into the local Family Dollar, which provides an important service in Easton, I don't deny that. I go in there myself. But about not even a half of their store, a third of their store might be food. The other is general merchandise. They can stay open because they're a food store. As a grocer for 28 years, I don't think that's correct, but that's besides the point. So that has been one of the things we've been dealing with, trying to help our small businesses and really come to grips with what is and what isn't allowed. Unfortunately, the bad news continues, because we did get, Mr. Hopkins shared with Mr. Campos and I yesterday the most recent engineer's report for the Pine Street garage, and it looks like, we're going to have to put, well over $200,000 again this year into the Pine Street garage to keep it up until we get our new 4th Street garage. And just so City Council knows, construction may have stopped on all the projects that were occurring in downtown and in the city, like on Walnut Street. But the good news is that we're going to continue moving forward on the projects that are still in the pipeline. So we haven't had a historic district meeting, or historic commission meeting, so we have not had a chance to discuss with them the 4th Street garage elevations, but we will try to get that scheduled for the month of May. April is definitely going to be canceled. I've put off, I talked to Mr. Narowski today. We're putting off the zoning ordinance amendments on April 1st. We're not going to have it, but we hope to have it on the first meeting in May for the Planning Commission. But April's meetings are definitely canceled. Nothing is going to be that important that we have to do it. So that's the end of my report. Moving on, correspondence. There isn't any unfinished business, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we had bill number 3 that was introduced by Ken Brown, which would amend sections in Chapter 56 Finance. However, that was tabled due to make amendments. So we have to take a vote to bring it back to the table first. And then we're going to have to reintroduce it with the amendments.
I'll make a motion that we bring it back to the table.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Who was that?
Was Dr. Ruggles?
This is David Mayor. I said.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Dave O'Connell. You guys all sound the same. At least when I call in, I'm the only one. So it's easy. Any discussion on bringing it off the table? Roll call.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
And Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
And then you all were given a copy of what all the amendments were I think our city solicitor took care of that. So now we just need to move it in second to introduce it with the correct amendments.
Rita, before we continue, I had a question I want to bring up.
Go ahead, Councilman Milan.
I spoke to the solicitors earlier today regarding the language, and I think we might need some clarity, or maybe it's just redundant. I'm not sure if the city administrator should be designated the deputy, since we already have a deputy finance director. So I'm not sure if it's redundant or it's just unnecessary, since the city administrator can already sign checks. But I'm wondering if we just make it the director of finance or the designated or the deputy director of finance, since we have that person does physically exist in the building with that title.
Joel may want to
Mark?
address that.
I don't believe that the deputy director of finance is on the signature cards with the bank, so that would be something we would have to address if that's the route we want to go. But then if we remove the city administrator, then
Well, he brings up a good point. He's saying the city administrator already has the right to sign one of the three. So if you need somebody, you need somebody who's not already part of the group to be the deputy and only signs when the director. In other words, if you, Mr. Lisinecki, decide to take your family on a biking trip for a month, and we need to process, the person who would sign for you would not be the city administrator, because the city administrator already signs.
Yeah, you know, actually,
So it
Mark, it makes sense right now. It doesn't mean in terms of like control, if you will. It doesn't mean that we have to have Rebecca right now on the signature card. That it should be an option. It does make our bench a little bit deeper, given the situation. You don't know. It's not a bad.
Yeah, if you have to be
It's not a bad
quarantined
call.
for 14 days because you may have been exposed, we would not be able to stop checks for 2 weeks.
I would.
Well, we have to anyway.
I would not move towards the bank, and have them put her on a signature card right now. But I think it makes sense. to have
Designate the deputy finance
It's,
director.
it's an option. It's just an option.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. It was a good catch.
If you want to amend that, my suggestion might be to give even more flexibility that director of finance or his deputy, or in lieu thereof, his designee. I don't know if you need to go one extra spot because of personnel glitches or unavailability. But remember, the mayor is also authorized to sign, so you'd still get that one administrative signature, all of which is overseen by the controller.
Right.
Well, I mean, if it's okay with you, Joel, I would simplify and just say by the director of finance, comma, or the deputy director of finance, or the city administrator. That's all.
Okay, within that one class, within that one grouping.
Yes, please.
That's fine.
Okay, I think you could do that.
Just to simplify, I think it's just going to, just to kind of keep it clean and simple, if that's okay with everyone else.
Okay, so I think you could make that amendment to the proposed ordinance now. I don't think it's significant. It gives you to the next meeting to review it, and if you have any concerns about that.
Okay, so it's going to be after finance director, comma.
Finance director, I can't even find it in here. Well, okay, got it. Go ahead, Mayor.
Then after a comma would be deputy finance director or city administrator.
Or city. But then are we still leaving the deputy mayor one in there?
No.
Yes.
Oh, we are?
Well, the vice mayor.
Oh, vice mayor. Yeah, there's no such thing as deputy mayor. Vice mayor.
Vice mayor. So should I read what it's supposed to be, just so we know?
I think we have it.
Okay. But it still can then just be voted on next.
The solicitors
changes
ruled that it's
might-
not a major change.
Okay.
So I'm assuming
So I need
as amended, we should vote to amend it first, right, Mr. Shear?
Yes, please.
Because it was on the agenda and was publicized.
So I need a motion to amend it.
Right. We need a motion to amend.
Move.
Moved. Is there a second?
I'll second, David.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roll call.
All right. Dr. Ruggles? Dr. Ruggles?
There we go. Sorry, my phone didn't work. Aye.
Okay. Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger? Mr. Ettinger?
Mr. Ettinger, if you have your phone on mute, it's time to take it off.
You lost them.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Pantos?
That's okay. That's my name. I go back to my teaching days.
Mayor
Aye.
And Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger? Okay,
The computer shows that he's still on. Okay,
all right.
moving on.
Number 3. Now we have bill number 4 being introduced by Mr. Milan, where it would be repealing the attachment to an amendment that was made for meter parking on the 600 block of Northampton Street, the south side. We're repealing that entire attachment.
So introduced.
Second.
It's only being introduced, but thanks. And then, Mayor, we pulled off bill number 5, which was creating the towing.
Correct.
Sorry.
And then we have bill number 6 being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, where we're amending sections in chapter 515, streets and sidewalks.
Rita, this is Peter. You can put me on this.
Peter? Okay.
I'll take it.
All right.
I'll introduce it.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question on this?
Sure.
The language here indicates that if police or fire shut down a road for more than 2 hours, they have to do a notification, and if they don't, they're subject to penalty. That doesn't seem right to me, but they're going to be busy enough doing whatever they do instead of having to notify the city that the road is closed.
I thought they were notifying emergency control center.
Yeah, but the bill says that they have to fill out paperwork associated with that. And so, I just the way it reads doesn't, I think fire and police should be exempt from this. It shouldn't have
Well,
to.
they're not exempt because 911 needs to know where they're at, and if the street is closed down, they need to circumvent, let's say, emergency medical services. East Emergency Squad has an emergency on the 500 block of Northampton Street. They have to know that the 300 block is shut down. So I didn't realize it needed required paperwork, but usually the emergency control center handles it with the other emergency vehicle. They will notify saying there's police activity on 300 block of Northampton Street. But can we introduce it and take a look at that? That's not if we eliminate that, I don't think that's a major change.
No, I just think that the way I read it anyway. So maybe I read it incorrectly. I don't know.
No, I'm sure you read it right. Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, so that's being introduced. And
Right.
Mr. Milan took care of that. Okay. Now we have a resolution being introduced by Mayor Panto, and it's regarding the League of Cities has sent stuff to the presidential candidates for what might be stuff that they feel that the president should really consider in their run for the presidency. And just a brief touch on it, their priorities should be building sustainable infrastructure, creating new skilled workforce, ending housing instability and homelessness, and reducing gun violence.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger, Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
Okay, and then we also are removing the resolution
Bill number 6.
opposing the taxation.
5.
Okay, that's done. Okay, now we have a resolution being introduced by Ken Brown, approving an agreement with Diversified Technology and the City of Easton for the billing of real estate taxes and lockbox services.
So moved.
Second, Roger.
Roger, second. Any discussion?
I have a question about that.
Go ahead.
This is Councilman O'Connell. At the last meeting,
I need you to talk a little louder, David.
I'm sorry. At the last meeting, didn't we discuss possibly having a cancellation period that was not 3 years?
5 years.
The one last meeting was 5 years. We were able to get it negotiated down to 3 years.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I thought the last one was 3 years. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion?
I just had a quick question. What is ACH payment?
Electronic.
I'm not familiar with that. I'm sorry?
It's an electronic payment, Dr. Ruggles.
Is that made by us to them?
No, it's made to us.
No, it would be from them to us. Right.
On page 10, okay, it says that all fees will be billed on the first day of each calendar month, and the invoice will be paid by the 5th. You hear me?
Yes, we hear you. We're just looking at it.
Okay. That seems to me to be a short window, and specifically if, let's say, the 1st is on a Friday and we have a holiday Monday, there's 3 days that we're not functioning before the 5th. So I'm just wondering why it's such a short window.
That application would appear to me, and Mark, I really defer to Mark on that, but that would be where the city would be giving the provider our bank account where those funds would come from, and it would be an automatic withdrawal, just like when we sign up for the city utilities. Am I right, Mark?
That's correct.
So the city
Okay,
wouldn't
that's
write
fine then. I didn't want it to be that our finance department had to turn this around in a day, that's all. So that's fine. Thank you.
Good question. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr.
He's on,
Ettinger back?
he's on.
Nope, he's not on. Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Did you ask Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
He said he wasn't on.
Oh, he's not on. Okay.
All right, we have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Brown approving a contract between the City of Easton and Novice Pay Incorporated for the purposes of automating and streamlining the city's accounts payable process.
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Who seconded it? Okay. Mr. Brown? No, Mr. Ettinger? Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
And Mayor Panto.
Aye.
We have a resolution that's being introduced by Mayor Panto, sorry.
Hey.
Authorizing, where council can ratify and extend the mayor's emergency declaration. The mayor spoke about that earlier in his opening statement.
So moved.
Second.
Who was
Moved and second. Discussion.
that?
Who seconded it?
Mr. O'Connell, didn't he?
Oh, it was Mr. O'Connell?
No, I think it was.
If it wasn't Mr. O'Connell, it was Mr. Dr. Ruggles.
Okay.
I seconded it. Roger.
Okay.
Oh, Roger.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And our final resolution's being introduced by Mayor Panto. Basically, he read that also as well in his earlier statement outlining the powers that would be okay for him for making decisions regarding anything with this coronavirus.
The ones that I mainly wanted city council to agree with were the ones that extend the payments, like the earned income tax to July 15th and the business privilege to August the 1st. Everything else, most of this, as Mr. Scheer pointed out, is really not necessary under the emergency declaration, but I think it's important. I think council has been a very good partner, and I wouldn't want to do anything that you may not like. So if there's something in this list that I read that you don't think is true, then we would certainly be willing to talk about it. But other than that, it's primarily, like, I don't have the power. I have the authority, not me, but the mayor has the authority to give like 10 days of free parking. Well, we're going to be over that. So I wanted city council to endorse that, ratify that, as Mr. Scheer corrected me that it's endorsing or ratifying, not endorsing. And in the same way with some of the other things that are listed in here, that closing City Hall. I mean, yeah, I can do it for 7 days, but it's already been 8. So, yes or no? I mean, I think City Council should be a player and participant in that decision.
If I may point out some authority, because there are provisions here that, if you look at the Home Rule Charter, the city would be boxed in, such as the city council meetings, which are supposed to be twice a month, and the district meetings. So I just want to point out that under our state laws, 35 Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, annotated 7501 bracket small d, there is an allowance for temporary suspension of formal requirements. We also have a provision in the Home Rule Charter in 2.14 for emergency ordinances, and I think we need to follow this. We need to monitor this carefully, but it's a unique situation, and I don't know how much. I would prefer to see regular meetings, but I think we need to use some good judgment, and when necessary, I probably would prefer, if we have something specifically identified, that the mayor would issue another emergency declaration and have it ratified by city council.
Okay, Mike, I agree with you, Joel, but I didn't want to usurp authority that I don't feel comfortable with when there's a council that is the legislative body. That's why I made this a resolution, not an ordinance.
But no, I understand, and I just want to be conscious, or keep conscious of the provisions that we need to follow. This is really, I think, an outline of where we are potentially today and going into tomorrow, but we need to monitor this carefully as actual action takes place. This will give you the authority by City Council to proceed as outlined, and as particular things come up, we'll be in discussion as to whether this gives you the authority or whether we need further action.
That sounds good.
So, Mr. Scheer, what is your recommendation?
No, I was just my statement was this resolution's okay.
Okay.
The way it is, I'm just saying that we should keep an eye on what happens, and on certain matters we may want to go back and enact specific, either a specific declaration or another ordinance to be more specific, to have council's stamp of approval. But for now, I think this gives you the authority that you need to deal with the emergency situation, as long as the council's comfortable with that.
That I understand. Thank you, Mr. Scheer. And I understand, because I do know that we have to have at least one meeting a month just to keep the process of city operations operable. But thank you for that clarification. So I'll introduce it. I'll move it, rather.
Yeah, I need a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Sandy, you got this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Vocano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Hey, let me, at this point, does any member of council want to say anything or have any business come before city council?
I do, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I just wanted to also echo what my colleagues have said in reference to your leadership and the team you have surrounded yourself with through the directors. They're doing a yeoman's job in a situation. Everybody's really stressed up there. I know you're receiving a lot of phone calls as themselves. But again, the community out there has to understand that this is something that no one has gone through, and that we are working very diligently to get through this. And as a team, we will get through it. So thank you for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Councilman Brown, Vice Mayor Brown. Do we have anybody that called in? We do have one, even though it's not on the agenda. I want to be as transparent as possible. There's somebody on the line that wants to make a comment or ask a question or voice a concern. So, he has to call them, right?
Well, actually, they sent an email, said that they could, that we can read it.
Okay.
So this is actually from Melissa Starris at the college, at Lafayette College, providing just an update She thought that
Okay.
it might be relevant to share.
Sure.
She said Lafayette College is in a remote learning environment through the remainder of the semester. Commencement is moved to August 1st. They're promoting curbside pickup in their campus updates. Although students are learning remotely, we are able to count them in the group quarters enumerations reporting to the census in mid-April, or that's now been moved.
That's good news.
Right, and
That's good news.
correct or agreed. The college is collecting PPE, as we found out what that means, and cleaning supplies to donate to local health agencies, and looking into 3D production of shields for healthcare workers.
Oh, I should mention there's a 3D company, a 3D printing company that contacted me that's going to do shields for the hospitals as well, emerging medical services. I told them to contact Easton Hospital and Easton Emergency Squad, but that there is a 3D printing company that's going to do that also. So that's great. Glad the college is involved as well, even though they're not open. And our solicitor is going to be out of shape by the time they reopen. He's not going to be able to play basketball.
No ball.
I'm playing
Anything-
virtual basketball.
Virtual basketball. That's good, Mr. Shear.
Yeah, I'm bouncing my head against the wall.
Anything else coming for council? Motion to adjourn?
Move.
Moved, Sandy?
Second.
Who was Dave?
Yes.
Moved in second. Discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger? We lost him again. Mr. Milan?
He's MIA.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all. Stay safe, be healthy, and have a good night.
Same to you.
Good night, Mayor.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Good night.
Aye.
A recorder has left the conference. The conference has been unmuted.
All right. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
All right, well,
Jim, he
I'm
just
gonna do
kinda-
some dinner.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yep. Well, good. Thank
Hold on.